All right, this is going to be a code tour of just the recent development of having got these levels to swap into different dimensions and different functionalities to where you're doing gameplay and then it swaps into a couple of cinematic slides, and then it sets you up and initiates you back into a situation where you take action and you can basically do a checkout experience is where it's leaving off here, and I'll be adding more to that and following up on this, but I wanted to talk about what's happening with the code. Okay, so where I'm starting out here is this image of the staffer. So once you make it to the level where you get to the permit office shipping container, there's a screen, and on that screen there's just a 4-second flash of a smarmy, mercenary looking, bribe taking, permit issuing staffer who is inside of that office, but he just kind of smirks at you for a second, kind of acknowledging your existence, and then you get a QR code flashed at you, and in that same frame it's just like cinematically shows you scanning the QR code, and then so it flashes the staffer for 4 seconds, and then it flashes flashes the staffer for 4 seconds, and then swaps out the staffer for the scan QR code cinematic frame, and then after 8 seconds that gives time for both of those to take place, then it swaps you into the next cinematic frame, which is the automated adding of the first permit purchase to your cart, as it were, with your little wrist console readout. And then after that first one, the next stage that I'll be working on is where you have the ability to add up to 10 of them by actually doing gameplay functions in order to add those to your cart, and then eventually check out, and then you'll be bounced back to the main game environment. But I wanted to go over in the code here this logic, which is a combination of initializing these intervals where it's going to routinely cycle through almost like a loop until you clear the interval with the clear interval command, which can be at any point given whatever conditions. I'm trying to get in the habit so I don't leak memory and have these intervals looping forever, even when you're way beyond that level in the game. The idea is that it has to continue to test and loop and test and loop for conditions that you specify. So I specified a condition within the function that's looping called staffer here, that if this I set a variable to a Boolean, which is false, of whether each stage here that happens, I set a Boolean true-false value as the test, so that these functions going off in these interval loops, they won't just fire randomly, and they'll wait for each other, but they'll continue to test to see whether or not the Boolean condition is true or false. So they start out false, and then you get to the permit office. Okay, that is true. Permit office reached. Then the QR code scanning has taken place. That once that is made true, then it's tested for that in the next interval loop, and then if the test is true, or the Boolean is true rather than false, then it goes to the next sequence where you're adding you're adding it to the cart. And then, so this is just a demonstration and a way for me to kind of document my use of these nested timeout functions that are being called inside of intervals that are conditional, and where when they get met and they get executed, the interval shuts itself off and doesn't continue looping in memory. And the way to test that is to put in lots of console.log parentheses, quote, test value, etc., end quote, or a variable that contains data such as coordinates or whatnot. But basically using the console log, which is when you hit F12, at least in Firefox, you hit F12, you get the developer tools. You see what's going on in JavaScript environment commands, and so if you put those console log lines in with the code, then you can verify that each line is executing in the order you expect it to, and it's not skipping over them, or it's not looping too many times. So can never do enough console logging is what my experience is. The less I do it, the more time I waste trying to figure out what's not working. The more I do it, even though it feels tedious sometimes, the more assurance I have that each line is executing, and I can easily identify and reverse engineer at what point something is not functioning properly. And with this, it took a long time to get all this stuff working, because there's so many different divs that need to be toggled on and off. The order that they are listed in the HTML file can affect whether or not they block each other out, regardless of what the style sheet is saying. So there's a lot of moving parts, and they can contradict each other a lot. So that definitely helps to use the console log function to know, oh, well, it's getting down through all the lines of code, and yet what I want it to do, or what I'm explicitly telling it to do, is not happening. So why is that? Where's the issue? Where's the bug in the code? So that's where I'm at with this demonstration of the Boolean tests of the nested set timeouts within the set intervals, in order to basically cheat and break the single-threaded limitation of this language, where it's just going to go one line after the next, and the only way to stagger functions is to throw these conditional tests in, and then use these timeouts and these clear intervals, so that you can order a sequence of events in a manner that is aware of the limitations of it being a single-threaded language. That's my understanding. That's the terminology that I've learned so far. Correct me if I'm wrong. Cheers.